again, to those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Awod Ngwenya, and I'm co-hosting the meeting with our sister Yvonne Dushime all the way from Rwanda in Kigali. And also joined with me are also our country spokesperson, who are also the ambassadors of Alaf Black people who represent their countries. I hope all of you have seen the flyer of the country speakers as well. And again, today, we were supposed to have our co-founder, Mr. Mapondera, to join us and give us a speech and also give the question and answer segment. But unfortunately, he's stuck to his farm. He's doing also farming here in Zimbabwe. And he also stays in the United States, in Washington, D.C. But he's a hardworking man doing farming as well here in Zimbabwe. So without wasting much of the time, we're going to, I'm going to pray using my indigenous language, which is Shona, which is largely spoken here in Zimbabwe. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pray, then after that, we're going straight to the country representatives giving us updates on what is transpiring in their respective countries. So let us all pray. Amen. Yeah, so people are still joining. I can see people are still in the waiting room to be accepted in. So they're still joining. We still have low numbers. We only have 24 people on this meeting, but hopefully when others receive the links, they will join and you reach a maximum of 50 people on the Zoom call. The challenges we are facing is data to some of the people here in Africa, and they can't access the meeting due to lack of data to join the calls. But we pre-record the meeting so that when they do get the data, they can still learn about the Pan-African history and the healthcare lectures. Yeah. So today we're going to start the country representative from all the way from Nigeria. His name is Ifesinachi. He's going to present first today. Yes, brother Ifesinachi, how are you? I hope I pronounced your name very well. Can you hear me? You can unmute yourself. Yes, brother Ifesinachi. You can unmute yourself. Can you hear me? I think you're facing...
I muted myself. Hello?
Hello, we can hear you, but not speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. You can go ahead and present your report.
Greetings, everybody. You can share. Fine. I want to first and foremost thank the founder of this novel platform. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but
hello.
A bit of stretches. Yes, we can hear you. I think you're facing network challenges. What you need to do, maybe you can leave the meeting and rejoin again to present your report.
I can do what?
You can leave the meeting and then rejoin again with a strong network so that we can be able to hear you. We can't hear you. You can leave and then rejoin. So we are going to move to the next country spokesperson, who is our brother ambassador all the way from Guyana. His name is Mr. Clyde Fowler. Yes, Clyde Fowler, you can unmute yourself.
Good morning, brothers and sisters, ambassadors, Brother Award, and I want to say it's a blessing indeed to be here once again. I want to say thanks to the founder and co-founder for this platform that we're using for the Pan-African classes. We want to thank the lecturers for their information that they're sharing. It is well received. I am here representing Guyana, and I'm Ambassador Clyde Fowler. Marcus Garvey once said, "The black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness." And with this, I would like to say that here in Guyana, at the Pan-African movement here in Guyana, we have been challenged time and time again with the government. At this point in time, the government has, with the reparation committee, they have withholded funding from the reparation committee. So that is a challenge for us as African Guyanese. We have also some areas in which the government would have shown blatant disrespect and disregard for us as Black people by going into some of the communities that Black people are in, and they're doing works on the road and so forth, which is a good thing. However, the squatters that are there in those areas, they are removing them forcefully and not compensating them. Same with the Indian communities, but when they go to the Indian communities or other communities, they are giving compensation. For example, the indigenous people, when they went to their area, in one of the regions, they give them $1 million, Guyana dollars, for assistance in terms of building their homes and so forth. But when it comes to the African communities, they give to them basketball nets and rings, and no financial assistance is being given to them, but they give them, handouts. They give them things like food stuff and so forth. But when it comes to this financial stability of the country, it is going into one side of the fence and the other is left impoverished. So we here in Guyana, the government has removed the restrictions for travel to Guyana in terms of having persons be vaccinated. And our COVID death stands at 7 to date. We have, I think, a 7 increase thus far as well. But we have seen that the government has been working in terms of the monkeypox. They are unsure at this time as to what really is happening, because we are having some technical issues with the testing kits and these things that they're having and sourcing of these things. We should take pride and not forget that as Black people, we matters. We stand against racism and all forms of attack against Black people. And for this, we say, we need to do more than belong. We need to participate. We need to do more than care. We need to help. We need to do more than believe. We need to practice. We need to do more than fear and be kind one to the other. We need to share this platform one with the other. We need to ensure that the safety of Black people throughout the continent and the diaspora is protected. And this platform that we are on is aiming to eradicate and to educate all and sundry that we are a community and a country and a region that has great importance, and our responsibility not only to advocate, but to share and to stand up for justice for one and all. And by sharing this platform, we can able to reach far and wide and let the people in authority know that we are together and we are standing and taking a stand as ambassadors, as friends, and as brothers and sisters. I am because we are a proud Black man. Ambassador Clyde Fowler.
Yes, I am because we are. Thank you so much, Brother Fowler, for presenting thank you so much, Ambassador Fowler, for giving us updates on what is transpiring there in Guyana. We do appreciate you, Ambassador, and also the work you are doing, sharing the I Love Black People up to all the places and to everyone so that they can share the safe place where there are good customer service for Black people, where they are treated with dignity and respect. We do appreciate that. So moving on next, we're going to try again our brother from Nigeria to see if his network is back. After our brother Ifesnachi, we're going to cross over to Ghana to where our brother Paul Mbila is. Yes, brother Ifesnachi, you can unmute yourself. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I have unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Are you?
Go ahead and present.
Okay. This is my fellow Africans. I am Ifesnachi Uroko, a country speaker from Nigeria. I want to first foremost thank
I think brother Ifesnachi
of this novel
yes, brother Ifesnachi. I think Unitech is not
and every other person that
I think your network is not good, brother Ifesnachi. Our apologies about that. We hardly hear you, and we are sorry about that. Maybe in the future I need to fix this thing, and maybe you can pre-record your speech so that we can play it on Zoom when the network disappoints us. Our apologies about that. I'll make sure that I will share the speech for our brother Ifesnachi, and if we still have time, I'll read the speech on his behalf. So we're going to move on next to Ghana. In Ghana today, we have two country spokespersons, brother Pombila, and also our brother who is also a long-lasting member, Ambassador Zousu Agbe, who joined the movement when it started. So brother Ifesnachi, apologies, we couldn't hear you, we hardly hear you, but we do have your report, and we make sure that all the people from all the nation hears it. Thank you so much, our brother Ifesnachi, for the efforts, for the love and peace. Thank you. So we're going to move on forward to brother Paul Mbila. Yes, brother Mbila Paul, can you unmute yourself? So to those that want to ask any questions, you can write in the chat room. Whilst brother Paul Mbila is representing, let's normalize to ask questions as well so that they can respond. Yes, brother Paul Mbila, you can go ahead and present.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, co-host. And thank you. I'll start by thanking the organizers of this very event and making this event a successful one today. As our other country spokespersons have given their presentations on racism, I will continue with where they left and try to bring out some facts in racism as far as racism is concerned. In fact, it is good that we are championing this cause to make it a popular one. One thing is that racism, as we are all arguing or debating on, goes beyond, to me, it goes beyond just white oppression and white against the blacks. Yeah, to me, that is how I see racism. Racism goes beyond that. And to talk about racism, we will chip in tribalism inside, and we bring in xenophobia into this. In fact, anything that tries to bring separatism, and anything that tries to bring prejudice, and anything that tries to divide people, we say that that is a racism. So we have a racism in a large extent. Racism in a large extent, the white, we always say the white oppression or white against blacks. But then I want to focus more on internally within our continent, African continent, and within our respective countries, how this racism works within this African continent and how racism works in each country. We take Ghana, for instance. In fact, Ghana about that is the 2022 Global Index about a peaceful country in Africa or in the world, if my memory serves me right. In fact, Ghana, after Mauritius, in Africa, after Mauritius, Ghana is the second most peaceful country in Africa. But then that doesn't leave the fact that there is no racism in the continent, in the country. You could see that racism, as I said, that it goes beyond just white oppression or white dominance. In fact, anywhere that we have structure, anywhere that we have rank, anywhere that we have institutions, it is bound that racism is bound to happen at that place. In fact, when you go to even churches and other institutions, you could see that there are some kind of what racism in the institution. And when you go to even other places, you could see that there are people trying to create superiority over others, which is not the best as Africans. Even in African country, African continent that we have, other Africans think that they are far better and they are superior than other African countries. That it shouldn't be the case because we are all blacks and we need to fight united. So I would say is that this racism and this xenophobia, in fact, tribalism, when we are able to fight against tribalism, in fact, the most thing that is happening and worrying Africans is tribalism. Yes, so if we are able to fight against tribalism and eliminate tribalism or tribal system in that continent, then we can unite and fight that racism. Because if we come to African country, continent and we found out that we are against each other, we cannot fight the discourse. So I am pleading on everybody that anything that is called tribalism, anything that is called separatism, anything that is trying to bring division to Africans and division to our fellow countrymen, we must say stop to all those things. And if we do that, we will be able to fight this racism. And I will end by saying that, in fact, there is no excuses. I will stop by saying there's no excuse. We have no excuse for racism. In fact, we have no excuse for racism because it is up to all of us to fight against this racial system in our continent. So when you take Ghana, I will tell our other country men who are living in other parts of Ghana. We have some wars that has been, conflict that has been happening within Ghana, the Alavanyo, the Boku, the Kokumba war, that whenever the tribal system comes in, unity falls, or unity, we disgrace unity in this sense. So let's all unite and let's all fight against this racial. And when we are able to fight against this racialization, then there wouldn't be any term called xenophobia, because xenophobia is something big that tries to divide us all. Thank you very much. I'll pause for now.
Thank you so much, because we appreciate you, Brother Pombila, all the way from Ghana. We do appreciate you. I can see our time is running, and Nana Akua already joined the call to bless us with the healthcare and holistic lectures. So we're going to jump over to Namibia, all the way to our brother Frederick to give us a quick presentation. I hope, Brother Frederick, I can see you didn't join using your mic, and we can't be able to have you on the meeting to speak. So we have our brother Ambassador Zo Owusu to give us a quick update as well before Nana Akua give us the lecture.
Hello, good day. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, you are loud and clear.
All right. My name is Zoe Owusu Agbe, reporting from Ghana. I welcome you all to this session of the Saturday History Call for I Love Black People movement. It's a great honor for me to represent fellow Black people from Ghana, West Africa, and the entire African people at heart. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Black brothers and sisters, I Love Black People app is using technology to build a global network which helps protect Black people from harm, humiliation, of racism and xenophobia, especially while you are traveling around the world and in a new environment. This tech startup is powered by Bill Murray and the Green Book API. Many individuals have been engaged from the length and breadth of Africa and the diaspora, the Caribbean, the United States, the United Kingdom, Asia, and many more parts of the world. We are accessible on over 58 languages currently, and almost all states in Africa and the diaspora. www.iloveblackpeople.com. This is the Pan-African movement for the I Love Black People, the love of Black and the Black at heart, which is crowdsourcing Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to populate our digital space. The Green Book, that's the survival guide, which is called the I Love Black People app on all devices. You can get it on Google Play Store and Apple iOS. We encourage you all to please download the app now. Download the app I Love Black People and recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly spaces in your area, community, to help protect Black lives from humiliation of racism and xenophobia. In addition to the website and app, we have the long-standing Global Green Book, a Black survival guide that can be gotten on Amazon. This Black survival guide was created to help Black people access Black-owned and Black-friendly healthcare providers globally, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. We also lock it down on Black contents on every Thursdays, Sundays, and Tuesdays on HUR Voices Sirius XM channel 141, hosted by our honorable co-founder, Sinclair Skinner. Brethren, this is not a one-man's work. Let's all join hands. Spread the love. With your help, we are building a global network to help protect Black people from harm and humiliation of racism and xenophobia when they are most vulnerable, especially while traveling around the world or in a new environment. Let's save lives. Join the movement now. I Love Black People. Recommend the app for families, loved ones, and friends. Share the link to the download. Get the app downloaded. Join our brothers and sisters in the I Love Black People movement. Opt for a membership. You can become a member, a founding member, a moderator, or a brand ambassador. We run free online Black history and health classes with our seasoned professor and lecturer, Dr. Terren Wright and Queen Mother Nana Ekuya Zenzele, respectively, where you will be awarded with certificates at the end of every successful class. As the first president of the independent Kenya rightly said, our children may learn about the heroes of the past. Our task is to make ourselves architects of the future. I take it again. Our children may learn about the heroes of the past. Our task is to make ourselves architects of the future. Jomo Kenyatta. Unity is strength. Beloved, let us unite until victory is won entirely on the African continent and beyond. Live it, love it. You are Black. We are Black. I love Black people. I am because we are. Ambassador Zoe Owusu reporting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Zoe Owusu. We do appreciate you, and also I hope each and everyone did understand what I Love Black People is all about and where we are going. Also, grab your copy of the Green Book so that you understand the application better. On this latest edition of the Green Book, there are also work for Nana Akua, which she did, and she also includes it in the Green Book. So it will be a great advantage for you to grab the copy. You also learn more about the healthcare whilst you are surveying the Green Book as well. All right, thank you so much, brother. Without wasting time, We have Nana Akua, and thank you for Nana Akua to join in early. For you to receive a shout out from Nana Akua, kindly turn your camera on. She would love to see the Black African faces smiling wherever you are around the globe. All right, thank you. So we're going to have Nana Akua, and also for our brothers who didn't present today due to network issues, they're going to present on next week. And also check out our updates. We have job offers on our Love Black People platforms. Paid moderators are also needed, and also social media managers. So kindly send your CVs to work, and also in manuals to your protecting Black people. Thank you all. We are going to have Nana Akua take over in this segment.
Greetings, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining us. How is everyone feeling? Hi, Award. I don't see Yvonne. Pop up, Yvonne. Hey, Yvonne. Hey, Natalia. Hey, Ibrahim. Ifa Sanache, Haki, Sylvia, Juma, Paul, Owusu, Frederick. Who else is moving? Okay, I think is that everybody that has their cameras on. If I missed you, forgive me. Okay, I think that's it. Our numbers are a little low today. We good. I guess all who are supposed to be here are here. So I'm glad to see your beautiful Black faces. So we are going to continue this week with talking about holistic healing in general. And I want to speak specifically about kind of what to eat, how to eat, when to eat, and then sort of some, I guess, good concepts or eating habits in terms of how to eat, to live, how to, hey, Oliver, Mark, okay, Ken, okay, I'm mispronouncing that. The G-H-K-E-N is throwing me off. I sound like a European. I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry. Don't take my Black card, y'all. Listen, I was born in America. We don't know how to pronounce certain things. And I think one of the speakers said, you know, all the different languages. And let me just tell you this, as a person born in America, you know, you come here and people will try to make you feel funny because you have an accent or because you don't speak the Queen's English like we do here. But let me just tell you, we are the ones behind because most of you can speak multiple languages and we cannot. Right. So, and I am challenged. I've been traveling to Ghana for 20 plus years, and shameful to say, I've been all over Ghana and and has not mastered not one of the languages. Right. So it's a real challenge. It's not easy. So yes, forgive me. I am the one that cannot fix my lips to pronounce some of your names correctly. And that's my bad. So you all are ahead of most of us here in America because we can only speak English. So I applaud you for even being able to understand me and follow along in a class speaking completely a different language that is not your first tongue. So I appreciate you for enduring us, because this is the language we're speaking in, but we know that you maybe speak 2-3 others. I know Yvonne speaks about 4 languages, for example, and I think English is just her 3rd or 4th one. So you've mastered several, and I'm still trying to master this one, right, that limits me. So I applaud all of my African-born brothers and sisters that you're ahead of the game, right? So I appreciate you and I wanted to acknowledge that. So we want to talk about, and hopefully I can pull up my, you know, I'm also a little challenged with this, but we're going to get this information either way. So whether you can see it on the screen or not, I don't know if Award or Yvonne, if you can let me share the screen, let me see if it pulled up.
Yes, you are allowed.
Okay. So let me see if it's up. Okay, great. So it is there, it is there. So I want to talk, I think it's on this exact page that I need it on. Get to it. Okay, so let's start with talking about food combining. So we've talked a lot about, and is this the diet check? Okay, so last week we talked about some diets. We talked about some healing concepts, what it means to follow a holistic or natural healing lifestyle. So we've talked a lot about what to eat, but I think it's just as important to know when to eat it or how to eat it, right? So we can talk about limiting our meats or our flesh and limiting sugar and starches and different foods, but we also need to know how to combine our foods so that it properly or more easily digests, right? Because it's important what we put into our systems, but if our bodies cannot handle it, right? If we cannot digest it, send it where it needs to go, utilize what is of nutritional value, and then discard the rest, then it's all sort of pointless. So it's very important to know and get an idea of how to properly combine your foods. So this chart talks about that. The category of proteins, we know that proteins are meats, fish, nuts, soy products, certain seeds and nuts, right? And we know that starches are our grains, dry beans, peas, peanuts, chickpeas, potatoes, yams, things of that nature, right? Our white African yam and our yellow yams or sweet potatoes, our butternut squashes and winter squashes and all of those types of things. We know that our vegetables are things like leafy greens, cucumbers, asparagus, corn, radishes, turnips, beets, all of these different types of vegetables. Well, we have to consider how we are combining all of these foods together in order to get optimal digestion. And the first thing, and most of us, in most of our cultures, you know, based on wherever we grew up, most of us combine proteins with starches. And that is a very poor food combination, okay? Meat and potatoes does not go together if you're talking about your food being able to digest properly. It may taste good, and it does, right? But if we want to really get the best or the most out of our food, we need to combine it well. And so proteins and starches, a poor combination. If we're gonna eat proteins, we need to combine it with our vegetables. If we're going to eat starches, we need to combine it with our vegetables, but not protein, starch, and vegetable all together, okay? Also, if we are talking about fruits, not all fruits are created equal. If we are going to eat a variety of fruits, we need to eat them in the proper category as well. So our acidic fruits, our acid fruits, are fruits like grapefruit, lemon, lime, orange, pineapple, pomegranate, sour plum. These are acid fruits, okay? Then we have sub-acid fruits. These are your apples, your apricots, your cherries, figs, mangoes, papaya, pear, peach, grapes. These are all in one category. And then we have our sweet fruit, bananas, dates, figs, persimmon, raisins, dried fruit. All of these really should be eaten together, right? Not combined with a vegetable. And it's okay if you combine them with each other, but it's still not considered a good food combination. So eating fruits in their proper category is going to be best. So a fruit salad ideally wouldn't be any and every fruit combined together. It would be all acidic fruits added together, all sub-acidic fruits, and then all sweet fruits together. Okay, so you may need to study this chart a little bit, become familiar with what's good to combine, what's not. It summarizes it here at the bottom. Our good combinations are proteins and leafy greens, starches and vegetables, and oil and leafy. That's a little specific. We won't get into the oil part, but, and then we know our poor combinations are proteins and acid fruits, leafy greens and acid fruits, and leafy greens and sub-acid fruits. And then just straight up bad, back to where we started, proteins and starches. This is going to be a bad food combination. So let's talk about just some important elements of healthy eating. This is going to be a good guide, especially if you're not really ready to do without meat, or cut out sugar altogether, or cut out starches. These are just some other healthy eating habits that you can follow that may not be too restrictive. Give me one. Forgive me. So first, healthy eating principle. Eat whole foods, okay? Particularly fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, vegetable proteins, okay? This is even more important than saying, oh, I'm vegetarian, I'm cutting out meat, I don't do any meat. These principles will be even more life-sustaining. We are what we eat, right? So we want to eat quality food, good, natural food. Reduce any refined foods, sugar, excess fatty or rich foods, foods that have additives, synthetic coloring. This is key. Even if you choose to eat something that you know maybe contains flesh or meat, or you know it's sugar or something that's maybe not the best, there are still certain things you can say, well, I'm not gonna, eat anything that has all of these synthetic food colors in it. Start with that and kind of work your way down. Oh, I'm not gonna eat anything that has high fructose corn syrup. Or I'm not gonna eat anything that has hydrogenated oils. So you can kind of pick where to kind of start looking at the labels and picking out, okay, well, I know I'm not eating the best, but I'm not going to eat anything that has these certain things in it. I'm not going to eat anything that has monosodium glutamate. So you can kind of start picking and then getting your list, reduced bit by bit as to what things you can cut out. Still being able to enjoy food, because we know the psychology of food is that we do eat because we enjoy it. We eat because the flavor is good. We know that we find joy in eating. And so there's a whole mindset behind that. But in that, still make conscious decisions as to what things you will include and what things you'll just absolutely avoid. The next concept, drink no more than 4 ounces of liquid with your meals, right? This is important so that you do not dilute your digestive juices. We already have juices in our stomach that their sole purpose is to digest food. Hydrochloric acid, there is pancreatic enzymes, there's all sorts of fluids that exist for the purpose of digesting food. When we add other liquids into the body, it interferes with that process. If you can avoid liquids altogether, that's great. But if at the very least you limit it to 4 ounces, you will be aiding in your digestion. You want to chew your food thoroughly. Eat at a relaxed state. Be comfortable eating. Never eat when you're upset. If you're really in an emotional upset, don't eat. This will only interfere with how your body digests your food. You want to make sure you get sufficient fiber each day. You want to eat the majority of your foods that will be fiber rich, and you want to include foods like psyllium seed, husk, and flaxseed meal. This is going to give you the fiber that you need to then move out the foods that, or the remains of the foods that were not used for nutrition, right? So you want to make sure that these things don't sit and putrefy in the colon. So fiber is excellent for aiding in that, along with other things. On a daily basis, you want to drink 6 to 8 glasses of water, plus any herbal teas. We've maybe spoken about this before when we talk about water. One other way to figure how much water to consume is half your weight. If you're going by pounds, half your weight in ounces. So if you are 180 pounds, then 90 ounces of water is a good amount of water to drink throughout the day. Not all at once, but spread out through the day. Most of us are awake 16 hours a day. So if every 2 to 4 hours you are hydrating and breaking down that 90 ounces, that's a good way of staying hydrated throughout the day and not drinking too much at one time so that your body can't hold it or retain it. You also want to use any nutritional supplements and herbs as appropriate. A lot of times when we are not eating at an optimal level, we will need supplementation. It may be foods that specifically help with the digestive function, like enzymes that include the hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes, pancreatic enzymes that I mentioned a little earlier. Because if we've not eaten well, right, and those things are off balance, sometimes we have to supplement those things. Sometimes people have digestive issues because they don't eat enough live, raw fruits and vegetables, right? So they may need to take different types of digestive enzymes to help with that. Or heavy meat eaters may need to take certain digestive enzymes. Well, really it's the same thing, because if you're not eating enough raw fruits and vegetables, you're probably eating too many fleshy foods. But there are different enzymes that are needed to break down the different types of foods. So we sometimes will need enzymes added through supplementation to help with our digestion. Moderate use of alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine is important. Any excessive use of prescription, over-the-counter, or recreational drugs can really be detrimental to your health. Most of us know that, specifically on the liver. So we know that if we consume a lot of alcohol, if we know we consume a lot of drugs, if we know, even if it's prescription or recreational, we know that the entire body is going to be challenged, but specifically the liver. So we really want to avoid these things if we can, but if not, in strict moderation. Exercise. You have to move your body. Exercise is key. We have to exercise completely and fully to have flexibility, endurance, strength. We need to do all of these things, even if it's marching in place. I have a treadmill. Sometimes I go walking outside, but if life gets hectic, if I don't think the weather is suitable, or if I just don't feel like it, I will stand in my room and march in place. That may sound funny, it may even look funny, but I do high knee marching. I may even bounce a little bit, dance around, make it fun, but something to move your body is important to do every day. Ideally, 20 to 30 minutes a day, but even if you don't do that, I try to make it a point to do 10 minutes a day. I'm not saying, don't let me be the model with that, but I make a conscious effort, and that's in addition to your normal walking about, going through your day, but something where you're specifically doing it, especially if you know you have a sedentary lifestyle where you sit at a desk, your mobility is restricted, you're not doing a lot of moving or back and forth. You have to make conscious effort to set aside time a day to exercise, to move your body. And it can be whatever is suitable for you. If you prefer a slow meditative stretching type of exercise, yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, these may be for you. If you prefer something more aerobic, maybe step aerobics, exercise machines like treadmills where you're jogging, or the steppers or the climbers or the stationary bikes, the rowing machines, or walking, jogging, whatever it is that you feel you can do to physically move your body is recommended that we do that every day. And then the last on this list, maintain regular elimination. We will speak about this in weeks 7 and 8, but regularity is key. We eat every day, multiple times a day. We have to eliminate. Surely we know that not everything we consume is going to be utilized for our nutritional needs. So we know that we have to work to eliminate what is waste. A lot of times we're consuming waste products. And so we have to make sure that we have regular bowel movements. Move at least once or twice a day. Once is okay, twice is good. For most people, it's not going to be every time you eat. And of course, we know that when we eliminate, even if it's after each meal, we know that we're not eliminating from that meal. We're probably eliminating from 2 to 3 meals prior, right? But we have to make sure that our diet, that our physical activity, that our stress levels, that it supports a healthy bowel movement routine. Because usually it's going to be one of those areas that's causing the irregularity. So if you are stressed or depressed specifically, a lot of times people hold in emotions, they're also constipated, they're holding in waste, right? So we have to address that. Some people won't associate that with it, but if someone comes to me or when I was consulting people, and the issue is constipation, you have to have a discussion. You have to address whether or not there is some mental, emotional, or psychological barrier. And you have to address whatever stress or whatever depression or whatever issues that may go on there. So sure, it could be what you eat. It could have been that you've eaten too much dairy or cheese or something that you have a sensitivity to. So sure, it could be a physiological issue, but it also could be a psychological issue. We also know that taking certain drugs, prescription or over the counter, pain relieving drugs like opioids or opiates, these are constipating. So we know there are different reasons that one can be constipated, but we know that stress is a big part of it. If you know that you don't eat any fiber, if you don't eat any fiber through your vegetables and fruits or actual fiber like the flax seeds and things that we mentioned earlier, then we know that diet could be the cause of it. And then of course, again, if you lay around all day or you lay while you eat, can you imagine? I actually know someone who lays across the bed and eats while laying. Such a bad idea for so many reasons, right? So you're not going to digest that food properly. And chances are that type of person is not getting enough exercise and not moving their bodies enough. All of these can cause bowel irregularity, okay? The other thing mentioned here is it's important to replace that good intestinal flora, right? Or probiotics or your acidophilus, your digestive bacteria, to add that supplementation, especially if you've been sick and taken antibiotics, right? So this is what keeps that bacteria that's in the colon good bacteria, not disease-causing bacteria. So a lot of times adding acidophilus will help. Acidophilus will not actually make you go per se. It's not a laxative. It's simply to create the environment that is more healthy in the colon or the intestinal tract. Doing other supplementation like mild laxatives, stimulant herbs that will stimulate the colon, that's what's going to actually make you go. But while there is that waste that's in the colon, you have to add probiotics to make sure that that bacteria that's there doesn't turn into disease-causing bacteria. Okay, so those are some healthy tips there that I wanted to mention. The other thing that I wanted to discuss today, and if you are in the WhatsApp, the current WhatsApp group for the healthcare class, I did post, and because I could not find it on my laptop, I think I'll need to go and pull this up myself. I wanted to talk about foods that are good to add for certain conditions. Okay, and because I don't want to fumble with finding it, I'm going to just read it to you. And Natalia had asked me last week about good foods or diets for babies. So I found this handout and it's called Superfoods for Babies, and it says kids, but children. We'll say children or watoto, right? Kids are baby goats, so we don't usually use the word kids. But there's a whole list, a chart that suggests foods that are healthy to give our babies. And I don't know if you're in group 19 to tell you, but if not, email me, I'll send it to you. But let's just go over some of those. And of course, this applies to all of us, but I didn't give specifics last week when I talked about just the importance of what foods we first start introducing our babies to, you know, after, you know, being breastfed, or even if it's a situation where they can't be breastfed, or even our younger children, as we start to model for them what foods are healthy and what things they need to include in their diet. This I thought was an excellent chart. So it has things like avocados, bananas, beans, has some things I don't suggest, so you know I'm gonna skip over those. Carrots, butternut squash, broccoli, blueberries, chia seeds, citrus fruits, coconut, leafy greens, and this would be spinach, your green leaf or red leaf lettuces, your kale, things of that nature. And it even tells, the chart is really good because it even tells you how to prepare. It'll say cook, puree, or dice. So for each food, it tells you kind of how to prepare it. Quinoa, peas, oats, fatty fish like salmon and tuna, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, white fish like haddock or cod, yogurt, and again, I'm skipping over some of the nonsense. So again, when you find these charts, not everything, so I'm not going to tell you to give them beef or bison. I'm not going to tell you to give them cheese. But if that's in your diet and that's what you happen to include, fine. But I'm not really promoting that. But this particular chart gave 25 what they considered superfoods. And if you remember, if you've been with us before, superfoods are those foods that are so nutrient dense. They're so high in nutrients that it's considered a superfood because it has a multitude of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and such that you will get optimal nutrition from it, as opposed to a very simple food that has either little or no nutritional value to it. So that was just something I came across. But then there are other specific charts that I wanted to just highlight. If we're ill, if we're not feeling well, it's important to know what to do, right? Because sometimes we're our own healers, we're our own doctors, especially if it's sort of a nuisance condition where we wouldn't feel the need to go to the health clinic or the hospital or the emergency room or something like that, right? We know that we need to have a plan of what to do. And I don't know which week we'll discuss that, but I created some years ago, I think I called it the personal care plan. It's sort of like your blueprint for what to do when you're not well. And after being a healer for years and after being a mom for 19 plus years now, I have often been in that situation. And, you know, and despite whoever in the past have come to me and paid, right, for consultation, it always stings a little more when your own children are like, but you're, you know, you are a healer. You're supposed to know how to help me. And mommy, you know, what do I do? Or, you know, fix it, heal me, you know. So that's a particular type of pain, right? So you're always challenged with having to find the answer. You're supposed to know it all, heal all, you know, you're supposed to be a God, so to speak, right? And of course, we know that's not realistic, but babies, children, that's what they look for us. We're supposed to know the answer to everything and we'll be able to fix everything. So I really liked coming across these handouts because it was in line with the personal care plan that I came up with. So you need to always have in mind before you're ill, right, what it is that you need to feel better. So you need to know how I'm feeling. Physically, what are the symptoms? You know, you have to assess, okay, what's going on here? And you have to be able to assess what happened prior to, you know, so, and sometimes in sickness, this is not easy to do, right? But you have to have it kind of written out so that you can easily think of it. Okay, what did I do? What did I eat? Was I stressed? How did I feel? Did I have some kind of confrontation, some type of trauma? You know, is this a psychosomatic type of symptom? And then what is it that will make me feel better? What do I need to eat? What supplements do I need to take? Who do I need to have around me? You know, who is going to be supportive and loving and catering to me while I'm not feeling well, right? What environment do I need to be in? Do I need to be in my room? Do I need to be in the living room? Do I need to be on the bathroom floor propped up so that I don't have to, you know, make a lot of effort to get someplace when I need to be there? Am I more comfortable on the floor, you know, on some blankets? Am I more comfortable propped up in a chair? Am I more comfortable in my bed? There are all sorts of things that we can figure what makes us feel. So, and this may sound strange to some people, right? But for me, I often feel better laying in the floor if I'm not well, right? I maybe don't want to be propped up in the bed or on the bed or under cover. Like, so it just depends. So you really have to evaluate. Do you like soft music playing? Do you want the TV on? Do you want the radio on? Do you like sunlight? Do you like it dark? Do you like it cool? Do you like it, you know, warm? All of these are things that are very important to figure out what will create the best, most healing environment for you when you're not well. And of course, with different illnesses, that may change. But if you have regular issues, if you have a chronic illness and you already know what happens when you have a particular outbreak, or if something happens, these things to come up with will be easier for you. But even if it's just something that's common, like a cold, okay, how do I usually feel when I have a cold or a fever? Or how do I feel when I have an asthma, you know, attack, or an arthritis flare-up? If my fibromyalgia kicks in, you know, all of these things that we have experienced before, we're better suited to figure what we need to do to prepare. So these handouts, though, talk specifically about maybe what to eat if you have certain illnesses. So this one I came across was foods to eat when you, well, let me hold up with that. Let me finish my thought. The other part of this is also know when you need to get help. So let me say that. So you also have to evaluate, well, how bad do I feel? Do I feel so bad that I need to seek consultation from the emergency room? Or do I need to call my primary care? Do I need to go to the clinic or the urgent care, right? Figure out, of course, at what point you can no longer address it yourself, of course, right? And again, I know I mentioned this, but it can't be said enough. Know who can be supportive for you and call them, even if they're not nearby, right? And they can't physically get to you. Sometimes it helps to be, and now that, you know, we have video call and things like that, we can still perhaps endure the situation with someone. I know that in life, a lot of times people feel lonely and alone, especially if you are in a place where you don't have family, if you've moved and you are not near your loved ones, or if back when we were in isolation and we couldn't get to people. Utilize whatever we do have. So if it's just a phone call, if it's a video call, but utilize whoever you may need to help support you through your illness. Now, some people want to just be alone, right? If you don't feel well, you don't want to see anybody, you don't want to talk. So that's fine too, but whatever it is. But if you know you're the type of person that can kind of use someone kind of there, helping to console you as you're convalescing, do that. Reach out. Let people know. People who love you are going to be so happy that you thought of them and that they can assist you, even if it's in some small way while you're healing. If they can aid in your healing by simply being on the other end of the phone, even if they're not saying anything, even if, you know, you don't feel like talking, even if every couple minutes they just say, you okay? Well, how you feeling now? Or, you know, whatever the case may be. But these are all things that we can do and we can have written out or in the back of our minds to do when we're not feeling well. So now let's talk about what we can eat. So Foods, non-foods to eat when you have the flu. Let's see if I agree with all of these. Garlic. Okay, garlic. This may help with your congestion. I know someone who used to just peel off the cloves and chew them. Yeah, not me. That's not that's not one of those things I could do, but for some people, they can do that. Others, you may end up boiling it, right? Or you may mash it and add it to some other things, but people just straight up chew the cloves of garlic. Vegetable juice. This can help boost the immune system, whether it's a warm vegetable broth or whether it's a live juice with actual juices from leafy greens or other, vegetables that you've added. This can be helpful. It's rich in minerals. It can enrich or enhance your immune system. Hot tea. Now, this is very generic because there's so many teas, right? Because as an herbalist, we know that every herb can be made into a tea. So if I had to be a little more specific with this, a hot tea of something like elderberry or echinacea or golden seal or ginseng, nettle, horsetail. There's so many herbs that can be really helpful if you're dealing with the flu. But yes, the hot tea can just help, clear up congestion, clear your head, your sinus cavity, clear things up for you if there's a lot of mucus. Banana is listed on this list. This can be filling, and make you feel like you've really eaten something, but eaten very little. I don't know, I've shared this story before, but when I travel all over Ghana, right, I usually only eat bread and bananas, and I'll eat rice, right? But rice, bread, and bananas. So that is also on my list of just travel food. It's light enough, but filling enough to where I feel like I can go on and do all of the stuff I'm doing throughout the day and not have to have a heavy, saucy type of meal. Chicken soup is on the list. I think probably any kind of broth soup. Some people do bone broths. If they're meat eaters, this can be highly nutritive and healing. The warmth can be healing. It can be hydrating as well. So chicken noodle soup has been a thing that, especially in this country, has been utilized a lot for cold and flu. Toast or dry toast or dry starch. I would add maybe crackers to this as well. So toast and crackers, a lot of times is one of those things, a dry starch that's usually good, kind of gives you something to eat on, usually won't kind of upset your stomach. So it's something to kind of feed yourself with when you're fighting a flu. Doesn't take much effort. It's easy to prepare. So there's a couple of reasons, easy to digest. There's a couple of reasons that's on the list. Ice pops, it can be soothing if you have a sore throat. I would get, of course, the 100% fruit pops. I wouldn't get the ones with any high fructose corn syrup and other sugars in it. I'm even forgetting the brand now that I usually keep in the freezer for my children. This is good usually if their stomach upset, if they've been vomiting, diarrhea. These fruit pops are usually something easy to kind of take something in, but that's easy on digestion and can kind of feel like you've taken in something. Meal replacement drinks. These are good. This kind of gives you a meal without you having to put a lot of efforts into preparing anything, or it's easy on digestion, so you don't have to feel like a lot of effort needs to be put into chewing and all of that. A liquid meal for a cold and flu is always a good idea. And then last on this list is ginger. We know that ginger fights infection. We know that it has anti-inflammatory properties, so you can eat it, drink it, bathe in it. This is definitely a good idea for colds and flu. So that's that handout. There was another one for other foods to consume while sick. Limes, broccoli, blueberries, pineapple, ginger again, garlic again, shiitake mushrooms, chili peppers, pumpkin seeds. These were all listed here for this list of things to consume while sick. So I'll end there, but again, always take note of what it is you need for your healing process. have that available, have it kind of written out so that you don't have to struggle with what to do when you're not feeling well. And I think you'll be better able to treat yourself if you don't have anyone to care for you. Okay, thanks, Award, for putting my email. I'm kind of quickly going to see if there's some quick comments I can address. Ulcer patient. Potatoes, cabbage, juicing those are good for the stomach. Nothing spicy, nothing acidic. I used to have gastric problems, bloating ulcers when I was a teenager. I love tomatoes. I had to cut out my spaghetti. Spaghetti is still my favorite food, right? But tomatoes, certain spicy foods, things like that you have to avoid. But yeah, potatoes, cabbage, they've typically been used in juice for treating ulcers. And I think I'm out of time. If you have other questions or comments, I have a couple of minutes, I can stay on, but again, you can also email me if you need the packet. So thank you for joining us, and always, I bid you good health and peace.
Thank you, Nana, for your wonderful lecture. We do appreciate you, and we learned a lot. For those who have questions, Nana said she's going through them. Probably she will reply directly to you through the chat room on Zoom. And also those who are on Facebook, we have shared the email address for you to receive the handouts. It's nanaakua1@gmail.com. You kindly reach out to her and kindly ask for the handouts for today's lectures as well. Yes, so not wasting time, we're going to move on to Dr. Tyreen Wright to present us with the Pan-African History and Organizing class. Yes, Dr. Wright, welcome to the lecture.
Hello. I was trying to unmute myself prematurely. Good morning, good evening, or good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are. So let me, camera. Welcome to the Pan-African History and Organizing course. I'm Dr. Wright, and first, let me start off with an apology because, hi, hello. I actually sent documents and did not double check, and they failed. So I'm not going to delay. I'm going to stay on after we finish, but I'm going to resend and show you in real time what we're going to be reading for this week. This week, and I don't have a copy of the book in front of me, but this week we're going to be reading a chapter from a book I wrote called Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of Pan-Africanist. And we're going to be reading a chapter on Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists. And the reason why I use this book is actually not because I wrote this chapter even, but because I know for sure the history that I want you to learn and study regarding Pan-Africanism is actually included in it. It begins with the historic first Pan-African Conference of 1900. And that particular conference is the first of its kind. Some of the organizers involved in the plenary session, chief among them would be Henry Sylvester Williams from Trinidad. And he, on the part of the African Association, would organize the first Pan-African Conference, okay? Following that, there would be 1919, the Pan-African Congresses initiated by W.E.B. Du Bois and others. And it chronicles essentially those congresses, right? So the first Pan-African Conference, 1900, sole survivor, only living person by 1919 that attended the first Pan-African Conference would be Du Bois, and he would have initiated and organized the Pan-African Congresses, which would be continuous and would be essentially the think tank through which African leadership expresses a desire for continental unity. Out of it also would be the most important of the congresses, which is the 5th Pan-African Congress, the Manchester Congress, where they would assert that the total liberation and independence of the African continent from imperialism had to be necessary, and that unity, continental unity, was in fact the goal. It's that setting that the OAU is born out of. And as you know, some of you, the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, chief initiators of that would be none other than Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, and then essentially, and others, but, and then the OAU would later go on to be reinitiated as the African Union. And we can talk about it later on as we get into it as to whether or not the African Union itself as a body has carried out the vision and mission of the Organization of African Unity, whose chief objective was continental unification. And I want to just emphasize that continental unity doesn't necessarily mean the United States of Africa. It means an Africa that's united for its people, where the people benefit more than anybody. African people benefit more than anyone else from the unification of Africa, okay? As opposed to, as we see currently, more people outside of Africa benefit from what's inside of Africa, and the people inside of Africa and its global Black diaspora benefit the least from what Africa and African people have to offer. So this chapter chronicles that particular history. It's important for you to know, even if you were to use an example of history being you telling your own history, right? Anywhere you go, people want to know your history. Hey, my name is so-and-so. This is when I was born. I was born here to this family. This is, this is what I do. It gives one context. It locates you in the world. And so when we talk about Pan-Africanism, this chapter gives you the history of Pan-Africanism, so you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, okay? First up. Second, you will get a working definition of Pan-Africanism. And I will talk about the other concepts of Pan-Africanism that emerged later on with people like Nkrumah and others. But I will give you the first asserted working definition, which is explicit at the time of the first Pan-African conference in 1900, that first historic conference. That being said, there's a covering of W.E.B. Du Bois, who people see and still see, saw and still see as one of the premier Pan-Africanists from the diaspora. It chronicles the relationship between Booker T. Washington and Du Bois, which is a ongoing myth. And I don't want you to fixate on Booker T. Washington too much. It's just an entry point. So, sometimes when you're reading something, you have to have an entry point to the subject matter, right? How you get to it. That's how I would view Washington in this instance. Here, I don't really lecture on the Booker T. Washington and Africa thing, even though it is work and research that I've done, and I could talk about it at a later date. But for this purpose, I use this chapter specifically to give the history of Pan-Africanism as it's emerging in the world, as it's budding, as it is coined for the first time in the world. And so I take you sort of on a whirlwind tour of the diaspora in terms of all of the proponents, the human proponents of Pan-Africanism, whether it's in Haiti, whether it's in Jamaica, whether it's in the United States, and certainly on the continent. People all at the same time are expressing the same sentiment regarding a need for unity in order to protect ourselves globally everywhere we are. Okay, and so this recreates that moment in time, just in the same way if we were to talk about, you know, the pandemic of 20, well, it's still going on in some places, right? Pandemic. We would have to recreate the context. What was going on at that time? What was happening, right? It would be notable to say, you know, especially from the Western hemisphere, we say, oh, Trump was in office and this is what happened and this is how he handled it and this is what was going on and this is what, you know, this country was doing and that country was doing, and, you know, all of these chorus of voices being heard in the context of this pandemic. Well, that's sort of what I'm doing in the context of Pan-Africanism. I'm sort of creating the moment in time in history so that people can understand, so that you all can understand what in essence was actually happening at the moment that Pan-Africanism emerged. Like, what was happening that made African people on different continents, right, separated by oceans, think that we needed to come together for a common purpose? What were the common experiences on the African continent under colonialism, in Europe, under, you know, in those imperialist nations, in the Caribbean, under colonialism and post-enslavement, right? In South and Central America. What was happening that made them all feel like they had a common cause and a common interest, right? And that is explicit in this particular work. So that is why we'll be reading. So we'll only be reading one chapter this week. I think it is probably like 20 pages. And lastly, in this chapter, what I'm going to cover is so one Pan-Africanist being Du Bois, the other Pan-Africanist discussed in this chapter would be Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey would be the initiator of the largest Pan-Africanist and African nationalist organization the world has ever seen. And that would be the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. And that organization still exists today in various forms throughout the world, but there would be 47 chapters of the Universal Negro Improvement Association in the Western Hemisphere, and numerous chapters throughout the world, certainly represented in every dock and port in which African and Black people were in mass. So always given the appearance that it was an international organization, and it certainly was. I was actually in Costa Rica years ago in a place called Puerto Viejo on the Southern Caribbean side. And there was a building that still stood that had the Universal Negro Improvement Association. It was one of the places that Marcus Garvey actually was before coming to the United States. He was there and he established the chapter of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and even had a building. And so this was well into the 2000s, that building was still standing. Today, I'm pretty sure it's been removed or it's been converted into something else, repurposed. But point being is that Marcus Garvey organization initiated and actually modeled after the Tuskegee model, the institute led by Booker T. Washington, would be the first time and only time in the world where all of us, everybody you see here on this call, that represents their, geographical location in the world and African ethnicity and Black ethnicity have been unified under one single organization. It has never happened before and has never happened since, okay? And I chronicle Booker T. Washington's relationship with Garvey just to show how the organization comes about, what it is actually modeled after, which is the Tuskegee model, and how it comes to end up in the United States and use that as its base to essentially organize the African world. So there is a critique of Garvey, his philosophy, and his relationship to Washington in there, concluding then with various definitions of Pan-Africanism and how each of them all express Pan-Africanism differently, but with the same core principle: unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. Unity essentially for the purpose of protecting ourselves. Now, how did one do that? One had an economic path, one, which would be Washington. One had an organizational path, which would be Du Bois, and philosophical path. And Garvey, once again, also had an organizational path, which replicated Washington's concept of independence through industry as the path to unity, or as the path, the actionable attached to our unity, right? So protecting ourselves economically, right? Through industry, establishing our own organizations, institutions, businesses, so that we have an economic base. Du Bois was very much into organization, the initiator of the first Pan-African Congresses, and also obviously the proponent. He is the, at the time, the proponent behind nonviolent direct action. A lot of people attribute it to other people, but it's not. Du Bois is the father of direct action, direct protest, okay? And he challenges the thinking. So it's not a surprise that he would be the initiator of an organized body that would be the setting or think tank for African leadership to conceptualize their liberation struggles. Because we know that any struggle has to be ideological first, right? You have to prepare. This is why we're doing this, right? It's this ideological development. You get your mind right, you understand what you're doing, and most of all, why you're doing it, and finally, who you are doing it for, right? All of those things are totally relevant before you take any level of action. So Du Bois is the chief proponent of that. And then once again, back to Garvey. Garvey essentially appeals and is able to organize the African world through the printing press, the only industry he truly mastered himself individually. And it is through his paper called The Negro World that he is able to organize the African world from Africa to the Caribbean to Central and South America and the United States, okay? So his mastery of that industry allowed him to do that and give an international presence and share information that otherwise would not have been shared throughout the African world. For example, just randomly, the reason why African people in Jamaica would find out about the coronation of Haile Selassie would be because of what? None other than The Negro World, Garvey's paper. There was no television. There was, there was telegram, but Garvey would feature the coronation of Haile Selassie in color. And this is how African people in Jamaica would find out about a person who would bring what Garvey said, redemption to African people, someone from the East who would bring the redemption of African people. They never even knew that there was an Ethiopian emperor, okay, or a crown. They had no idea, right? They're in the Caribbean. They are, in essence, the descendants of enslavement and already physically disconnected from the African continent. There was no way for them to know that. It would be through Garvey's paper that information would be shared with them. There's great irony in that, only because Garvey is from Jamaica, but he was fundamentally, there's great rejection of him in Jamaica historically, and he writes about that himself. So you'll see that in that chapter too. That being said, that is the sum and total of what this chapter is about, where we get our chops in terms of the history, the coining of the phrase, the proponents, human proponents of Pan-Africanism, right? So the definition, the history, the human proponents, and their methods and approach to Pan-Africanism. So that in essence is the nuts and bolts of what you'll be reading. The chapter is called Booker T. Washington, Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists. And let me really briefly, I'm gonna come off camera really quickly to try to bring up the document, and you'll see that this will be shared into the group. I'm gonna do that in real time so that there's no delay. Then I'm gonna get back and try to resend the other documents as well. Okay, so let's see, I'll start my video. And you should still be able to hear me. And I'm going to show the document briefly so that you can see. Every chapter in this book is opened up with an interesting definition, not definition, but a quote from Washington himself. And this particular chapter does that, which talks about the unification of African people. Let me just see 1 second. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to actually share my screen briefly so that you can see this. Oh, can I have permission to share my screen? It stopped me.
Yes, you're allowed.
Okay. Oh, let me press it again. All right. And I'm on my phone, guys. So, all right, here we go. So can everyone see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So here we go. So this is the chapter that you will be reading. And I opened the chapter up with a quote from Booker T. Washington. And it says, "There is, however, a tie which few white men can understand, which binds the American Negro to the African Negro, which unites the Black man of Brazil and the Black man of Liberia, which is constantly drawing into closer relations all the scattered African peoples, whether they are in the old world or the new." See that? Constantly drawing into closer relations all the scattered African peoples, whether they are in the old world or the new. I've rarely met in America anyone of my race who did not, in one way or another, show a deep interest in everything connected with Africa. The millions of Negroes in America are almost as much interested, for example, in the future of Liberia and Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia, as they are in their own country. There is always a peculiar and scarcely definable bond that binds one Black man to another Black man, whether in Africa, Jamaica, Haiti, or the United States, okay? And that's Booker T. Washington, and that opens up this particular chapter that you will be reading. This is some of it. Let's see, yeah, this is some of the chapter. I don't remember how many pages it is, but you can see there, it's probably about 15 to 20 pages, but it's easy reading and it'll go by fast. It's very fast. Here, I wanted to show you another. Okay, no, all right. Well, early on in the chapter, you get a little bit of the history with regard to, right here, Henry Sylvester Williams and others, right? The objective of the African Association as described by Henry Sylvester Williams was to respond to the need for unity amongst African people in order to garner respect in the world. The organization would make representation in cases of oppression affecting our people wherever found, okay? And that's Henry Sylvester Williams in a letter as he talks about the concept and the vision for the African Association, which initiates the first Pan-African Conference of 1900, okay? So I'm gonna come off of there. I'm just showing you all that so that you can know what to expect, sort of like hold on. Okay, so that you can just get a little blip of what's to come. So I think that's it for now. I'm trying to these days stick to the time limits. I'm 5 minutes away from our deadline or our, time limit. And so I'm going to look at your comments really quickly. And hello, Serum. Thanks. Okay, good. So not much to say. Okay, so I see there's comments for Nana Akua, so none for me this week, no problem. That allows us to be efficient with the time. So I will be sharing that very document in real time right now. And I will be ending on time for once. Okay. Any questions, comments about, thank you, Anna. Any questions, comments about what you're going to be reading this week? Thank you. I was trying to keep it short and sweet this week, because I truly can go on and on and on and on and on. And I actually want to sort of fish out the replacements to resend. I'm having a little bit of a storage issue with my devices, so I want to be able to resend the work from last week. Thank you. And I'll be sending the film out from last week again to the link. But yeah, I wanted to keep it short and sweet, and I want you to have an open mind when it comes to studying the very specific earliest concept of Pan-Africanism as it emerged, right? So I don't want you to be clouded with a lot of other things, right? Talking about a million other things. Keeping it simple this week. Okay, so if that is it, I want to say thank you all for committing your Saturday to us and loving African people and Black people with action, right? Committing your time to us. Somebody has a question before we're out. Doctor, what strategy can we adopt to push the Pan-Africanism to the mainstream? Well, I mean, honestly, let me see the name. Oh, Serum. When we say mainstream, I guess you mean mainstream African context. I do think practice by doing it ourselves, right? I think it's in the walk, right? And so in other words, meaning that one, doing certain things like this, I Love Black People is making great headway. Just had the conference that you guys definitely know about. And it was at least publicized in the Time magazine. Is that right, moderator? So I saw that, but also too, I mean, just in your inner circle, making people aware of the fact that, we think that the objective is a lot of other things. And this chapter that you're going to read is going to clear up for you what our ultimate objective is. Unity does protect us from all the other stuff. So when we talk about what we're struggling for, the struggle in many instances is unity. It's not so much fighting the others as much as it is organizing and getting ourselves right within, right? And that starts from individual person, and then, your family, community, right? And on and on and on up to nation. So though that's my answer in essence, right? Word of mouth, and then 2, by practice, right? And then 3, by informing oneself and mastering one's own self and doing things deliberately, right? So for example, that's why I just ended with saying, thank you for committing your time and loving African people through action, because a lot of us talk, but when it comes to actually doing something, we're a people from one side of the globe to the other side who need so much. So words don't ever really serve us too much. Action does. And so we want, you know, people to understand what's actionable. And I think our Black people is a great way to connect globally. All of us on here are probably from other places in the world. We're not all in the same locale. That's great at this moment in time. So, and we all understand what I Love Black People, the basic functions. So, you know, we do let you know what are actionable ways to protect African and Black people. And that's important, okay? We can't do any of the other things that we want to do if we can't survive, right? So safety is right there, right high, you know, up on the pyramid of hierarchy in terms of human needs, right? So we need to feel safe first, or at the foundation of the pyramid of hierarchy, or the, you know, the human hierarchy, meaning that the foundational need of all human beings to feel safe first, right? Then have food, shelter, all of that. If we are constantly concerned about our safety, our well-being, how we're going to survive various situations, we can't get to the point where we do anything else. So this is actually a powerful tool. We're doing this. You are doing already one significant thing, right? Meaning that you're organized. Kwame Ture said even bad organization is better than no organization. And this is in fact an organization, certainly. And this is far from bad organization, because this is uniquely focused to the needs of African people in terms of organizing us globally and using this thing called technology that we didn't have 20 years ago, right? Hello, Lemmy from Liberia. Let's say 20, no, we had it 20 years ago. Well, no, not this level of technology, certainly not. 20 years ago, we didn't have it. Right, absolutely. So I'm saying absolutely to someone named Ife Sinachi. Okay, sure. You could always add what you want in the chat to tell us what you want to share about what you propose is needed on the African continent. Sure enough, I do think that our struggle in the diaspora and the on the continent of Africa are different and specific to our locale. However, the common problem of exploitation is there, right? So a lot of people may not understand how we exist here in the diaspora, but our communities are used as extraction sites for other groups of people. In other words, in Black communities here, the human resources and the economic resources are extracted from our community. Example, everyone will have a business in our community. Arab people will have businesses in their community. Our community, white people will have businesses. Non-African and Black Latinos and Hispanics will have businesses in our community. However, and take money from Black people and bring it back to their communities. However, Black Asians certainly can, specifically Chinese, can have business in our community. However, we could never have a business in any of their communities. And that is very similar to the condition and situation in Africa. The world over, Africa is an extraction site for resources, okay? And so that is one thing that we do, and extracting without replenishing and giving back is exploitative. And so that is the one common thing that we do that's one of the things we do have in common. And in terms of human resources, we don't have to guess about it. There's certainly a brain drain. The Western world extracts people with professional skills and they come to the West. So then there's a problem about, expertise and human resources within Africa, right? So this is why I see people in Africa go to Western hospitals and they're a head of state, but they don't go get medical care in that country. They go to Europe, not only because they have the perception that it's better, but also because there is a very intentional brain drain that exists in extracting the human resources still from Africa. And of course, the transatlantic slave trade was a mass extraction of the human resources in Africa. Doctor, is it enough to have Africa unite? When I say unity, I mean unity for the purpose of, unity for our benefit. I do think we're not even there yet in terms of we're still struggling and we have a lot of interruptions. One of the issues that I sort of am alluding to about the African Union is the fact that the African Union, which was born out of the OAU, now I'm 5 minutes over because of the, trying to respond to your comments. The African Union, having been born out of the Organization of African Unity, originally had a vision and mission of a unified Africa. But today, let's be very clear, 60%, the last time I checked, of the African Union's budget comes from the European Union. So please, can we really truly carry out African unity that is most of all not to the benefit of Europe, who is resource poor and is robbing and raping Africa of its resources in real time? So, and they are controlling the purse strings of the African Union. So, do you think we're going to get there with that entity? The Chinese gave a building in Addis to the African Union. And do you really think that they, without stakes and intentions, are going to let African people come to unity? And yes, there's a point in our curriculum here where I'll get to talk about the detractors of African unity. We can have the attitude like, who cares if we're unified? No, our unity will be at the expense of other nations and people, right? Who benefit from exploiting African people and the resources that the African continent has to offer. Absolutely. And we know this for a fact in a concrete way right now, but also historically, there are egregious cases of interrupting African unity, okay? None other, most famous or infamous of them all would be the assassination of Patrice Lumumba in one of the most significant regions in the African continent, the Congo, right? I don't want to go too much further because I'm 5 minutes over. So I want to still try to keep it African Hemisphere. Okay, I read that. Yes, not like the Chinese engineers in Namibia. Yes, so other people are benefiting from Africa, and what we need, we don't need a United States of Africa. We need a united Africa. And what I mean by united means an Africa, because the title doesn't, matter as much. What it actually is in terms of practice and function is most important. And what we want is something contrary to what exists now, meaning we want African people to benefit most from what Africa and African people have to offer, not benefit last, right? So that's the chief issue with that, okay? All right, everyone. So that was a false ending almost 10 minutes ago. So now I'm really ending. And thank you once again for contributing your time, dedicating your time to be with us on this Saturday. And love African people through action. And I am because we are. And I will see you all next week. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Wright, for
Thank you.
a wonderful lecture. I hope
Thank you.
everyone enjoyed and learned a lot from the lecture you just shared. And thank you very much, everyone, for staying on the call. See you next Saturday. I am because we are.
I am because we are. Bye-bye.
Bye.